Coming up on Legislative Review. Contentious legislation and firearm permits. Plus, employee notice of mass layoffs and business closures. And expanding low-income access to early learning enrollment. You're watching Legislative Review. Thank you for watching Legislative Review. I'm Angela Nolasco with today's top discussions in the state legislature. In the Senate, a landmark legislation aimed at tightening firearm regulations is moving closer to potentially becoming law. House Bill 1163, which was heard by the Senate Law and Justice Committee Tuesday, is poised to reshape how firearms are purchased, transferred, and possessed in the state. Passed in the House earlier this month on a 58-38 vote, it proposes to require gun buyers to obtain a permit, undergo background checks, complete firearm safety training, and meet strict eligibility standards before getting their hands on a new gun. It also outlines specific rules for transferring firearms, requiring dealers to maintain detailed records of every transaction. Those seeking a concealed pistol license must also complete a certified training program within 5 years. But there's more. The bill will also require law enforcement agencies to monitor permit holders, ensuring that they remain eligible to possess firearms. If a buyer has any outstanding arrest warrants or pending criminal charges, dealers will be required to delay their firearm deliveries. If these circumstances happen to those already holding a permit, their permit will be revoked by law enforcement. Proponents argue that enhanced regulations will prevent gun violence and ensure public safety amid the rise in school and mass shootings nationwide. 18-year-old student Finley Gonzalez testified in favor of the bill.
Every day I wake up and go to school with my backpack lined with a bulletproof insert. Why should a weapon capable of taking away a life in seconds be given to someone without training on how to handle it or a permit to use it? House Bill 1163 would prevent guns from falling into the hands of criminals and make sure buyers learn how to handle and store their weapons safely from state-certified training courses. 3/4 of school shooters obtain their guns from the homes of a parent or a close relative. With training, that number can decrease.
The bill faced fierce opposition from gun rights advocates who say it will infringe on Second Amendment rights and create unnecessary barriers for law-abiding citizens. Testifying against the bill, Aveen Klein of the NRA.
1163 presents a chicken and the egg problem. In order to obtain a firearm, you need a permit. To obtain a permit, you need to already have a firearm, because to pass live fire training with a firearm to get the permit, this bill will effectively end first-time firearm ownership. This will allow Washington to end the lawful sale of firearms through red tape and excessive fees while ignoring the actual problem. That's criminals. This bill needs an appropriation deferral to address how the state with billions of dollars in deficit can possibly afford this. This bill adds another unnecessary background check, which only serves to tie up police resources and gouge the pockets of NRA members.
The bill has sparked an intense debate on both sides, and if passed, could bring a crucial change in gun legislation in Washington state. We now turn to the House, where a Senate bill heard by the Labor and Workplace Standards Committee could potentially change how businesses handle mass layoffs and closures. Senate Bill 5525, also known as the Securing Timely Notification and Benefits for Laid-Off Employees Act, is designed to give more protections to workers at risk of being laid off. The bill aims to require employers with 50 or more employees to give at least 60 days' notice before initiating a business closure or mass layoff, like when an employer plans to shut down a facility or reduce their workforce significantly. Under the bill, businesses must provide specific details in the notice, including the affected site, if the closure or layoff is permanent, and specific dates of termination or layoffs. In a mass layoff, the bill would ban employers from including workers on paid family or medical leave, unless there are unforeseeable circumstances, natural disasters, or the completion of a specific construction project. If enacted, employers in violation could be required to pay affected employees back wages and benefits, including health care costs, up to 60 days. They could also face civil penalties of up to $500 per day for not complying. Proponents say it will give employees enough time to prepare for a job loss, whether that's finding new work, retraining, or securing benefits. They say it would give greater job security and lessen the impact of sudden unemployment, especially for those under paid family and medical leave. Chris Weber, a former Blue Origin employee, testified to support the bill.
I was a tooling design engineer building rocket engines at Blue Origin, that is, until last month when I, along with hundreds of my fellow employees, got laid off with 0 days' notice. If Washingtonians who have spent years building a company can have the rug pulled from under them in less than half an hour, then the stability of our lives is at risk.
The Mechanical Contractors Association of Western Washington shared their recommendations.
The language that came over from the Senate uses the word completion of a project. And for those of you who don't know, when you are in a hiring hall, you could be coming and going for 2 or 3 years. So having that completion date at the end is very restrictive. We need this to be applying through the whole course of the project, like the bill that was adopted by this committee. And so we'd prefer that language.
No one testified to oppose Senate Bill 5525. It passed in the Senate earlier this month on a strictly party line vote. A Senate bill heard by the House Early Learning and Human Services Committee aims to make it easier for low-income families to enroll their children in early learning programs in public schools. Senate Bill 5030 would reduce barriers to obtaining vital records and allow more flexibility in the documentation required for enrollment. Families may face fees to obtain birth certificates, which are needed to enroll children in public schools or early education programs. If enacted, parents or guardians of children eligible for Federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance, or SNAP, or the State Food Assistance Program, also known as FAP, would no longer have to pay for these vital records when enrolling. The goal of the bill is to support families that are struggling financially. SNAP and FAP benefits help low-income households, and many of these families face challenges in accessing necessary documents like birth certificates. Senate Bill 5030 will waive birth certificate fees for the purpose of enrollment and allow for alternative forms of documentation showing a child's age or birth date when enrolling in programs like the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program or public schools. These alternative documents may include a religious certificate, a hospital or physician certificate, an adoption record, or even a family Bible entry. Mental health specialist Alexander Clifthorne testified to support the bill.
When working with low-income families who are trying to enroll for a developmental preschool in the public school system, for example, I saw that obtaining a birth certificate could often become the final barrier that didn't get crossed, leaving children without access to services. This bill will absolutely help connect kids in our state with services that they critically need.
No one testified to oppose the bill, which passed in the Senate this month on a 43-4 vote. That's it for this episode of Legislative Review. Make sure to join us nightly at 8 and 11 for your highlights on the state legislature. And follow us on social media. Have a good night.